Hey there, it's Catherine from Moonstarlodge, and for those of you who follow the station or the channel, I'm glad you're here. And for those who are new, I'm an Canadian Indigenous healer, medicine person. I do shamanic practice. I'm a licensed minister and run a studio called Moonstarlodge and have since the 1970s. I have been running this channel since COVID started, simply because we needed to keep a connection with our community. And I'm here today to talk something different. I normally do readings, but I wanted to talk a little bit about how you connect with your tarot decks, new decks to you, or perhaps you've traded with someone else and you want to cleanse the deck. How do we care for the deck? And apparently my cat Socks thinks she needs to be part of this. But anyway, cats and dogs notwithstanding, let's go to the cards. And this is Socks helping. All right, Socks, come on. And Brian is going to be participating today, dowsing, so that you can see the difference. So I have in front of me a Moonology deck, which I received earlier this week. I have another copy in plastic still. It might be hard to see that it's in plastic, but it's definitely in plastic. There's the edge of the plastic. My copy, which I have used very little. I have my Judith Pintar deck that I use in most of my videos, and I've had this for probably 40 years. I have a White Sage Tarot in a tin. I have the Tarot of the Abyss, which is a recent deck, but I love it and use it and carry it around. And I have Morgan's Tarot, which was created in the 1970s. It's an 88 card tarot, not a classic tarot, but we're going to talk about this. If another copy of this deck arrives later today, I'm going to be able to make a different video on the Morgan's Tarot. So for the moment, I'm going to push it out of the way. So I'm going to have Brian bring the dowsing rods in, and Brian's going to explain to you in very simple, quick terms how this works.
All right, so if you can see, they're kind of, get them in the camera, there we are. You see the rods, if they cross, then that's positive. It's 100%, it's yes. And if they don't cross, they go out like that. And that means no or zero. And
or
then
there's not enough energy.
Or there's not enough energy. That's the other thing. So if you're dowsing something and you get this, or if I would ask for instance, the edge of the field of, say, this deck of cards, it might cross a little bit, but where they cross relative to the deck, now there you can see that if I were asking that, that would be a very little field. And if I come way out, then of course it's a bigger field.
All right. So we've got our puppy in the background who has a little bit of anxiety issues, so she's making a lot of silly noise. Just ignore the puppy noise. All right, so here we have the Moonology that I've used for a couple of days. It really literally arrived Friday. This is Sunday. Brian, can you show the edge of the field of this deck, which I have used a tremendous amount?
With the edge of the field, I may have to move the camera, zoom out, because you can't see it. Let me just switch this. Might be better.
It's
so
just,
and the edge of the field.
You can speak to how far it is too. All right.
So we're about, say, 6 or 8, maybe 8 inches.
All right.
From this deck.
Good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what happens when I connect with this deck. Now I'm taking this deck out and I'm holding it between my hands. But in addition to holding it, if I can find what I did with my crystal, This is a crystal I use with decks. I'm going to, from the shamanic perspective, I would blow into this crystal. So let me do that. And our tradition is 4 breaths. I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to connect as if I am breathing from my heart through the deck, up my arm, and back into my front heart chakra. To the count of 4, Brian, can you go ahead, and I'm going to put them down so you're not getting my energy, just the energy of the deck.
Take a feel of this deck.
So just tell them how far you are.
I'm backing up now, and I'm about, oh, it's got to be 18, maybe 24 inches.
24 inches.
So it's about 3 times the field.
So just the act of the intention of connecting with these cards. You would do this, you know, this might be better if this camera were on us here, because I can hold it up. We're going to switch the visual here because this is a process. So the very fact that I have held them here and I have breathed, I think it's important to know that intention is everything. So the intention to connect makes the energy that I have put into the cards through my higher self much more connected and much more likely to create a positive reading. Now I'm going to hold up a deck. This White Sage Tarot in a tin goes in my purse. Brian, can you do the edge of the White Sage without me connecting to it?
The edge of the field of the White Sage Tarot.
That's, you're in it,
4,
actually.
all right. So maybe 6 inches.
All right. So this is a metal tin. Metal, you know, conveys energy. I'm going to do the same process. This is a much loved tarot. As I say, I've carried it around in my purse. I'm going to do the shamanic thing. I'm going to take my crystal and the cards, and I'm going to do 4 breaths. As if I'm breathing out my heart chakra through the cards, back up there's a cardiac meridian actually in that arm. Okay, Brian.
Now, show me the edge of the field of the deck now.
And you're well into it. So he can't go any farther because he's at the stairs. All right. So that's very simple. The other thing I can do is pass them over incense. I've got an incense stick here. You can probably see the smoke. Okay. I can cleanse them by passing them over incense. Let's say I've allowed somebody to handle these cards. Incense is great. Crystals are even better, in my opinion. I have this lovely flat cluster. It's a clear quartz crystal cluster, and it's big enough to hold cards. I will lay my cards on this one. I also have 2 amethyst. So with the cards laid on top, I can then lay this crystal on top of the cards, making a little bit of a crystal sandwich with the cards in the middle. Now let's have a look at these Moonology decks. I don't normally bring decks in here to Moonstarlodge. We have an art studio. People come and go. I've been an artist, taught art for more than 40 years. I don't normally bring these in for sale, but I managed to bring some in and I'm making them available. So this is why I have one in plastic and one that I've opened to keep for myself. So let's do the edge of this deck. This is a very powerful deck, obviously. I've only had it for 2 days.
So we're about 5 feet.
All right. Let's compare this with a deck. The only way I've handled it is to take it out of the shipping box, and it still has plastic, and you're going to see what happens, how plastic deadens things. Can you do the...
Feel of this. It has no field.
No field. So I can do a couple of things. I could knock on it, and that's one of the old-timey ways of clearing. Does that help with the field, Brian? A little bit.
A little bit.
If I pass it over the smudge, does that help the field?
That's better.
If I blow into it, and breathe with the intention of connecting the cards. Does that do anything?
About 3 feet.
All right.
Now the other thing is the first deck that was unwrapped, Catherine has used it and has her energy in it, but she didn't blow the crystal and breathe into it.
No.
And it was 5 or 6 feet.
I actually didn't use it. All I did was look through it, basically to see that all the cards were there, because I check every deck that comes in this space.
So that's what plastic is doing to the field
And the lack of connection.
and the lack of connection.
Now, I could go all crazy and open this one. No? All right. It's hard when I can't see what's on the screen because I don't know where we're at with this. So, he doesn't want me to open the, take the plastic off, but that's the idea. If you take the plastic off and then you do all the kinds of things that I've done, leaving crystals. If you don't have a big flat piece of crystal, just put a crystal on top. But the crystals that I use are dedicated to that. I don't carry them around in my pants pocket. I don't use them for healing. I don't use them for making medicines. I designate the purpose of each of the crystals. Now this is a silicon dioxide because when you apply an electrical stimulus to silicon dioxide, it resonates to the Schumann effect, which is 7.86 cycles per second. When you are in alpha state, meditating, prayer, doing yoga, our brain is resonating at 7.86 cycles per second. That's the meaning of being grounded. When we used to have watches, and the watches would say quartz, it's because there are quartz impregnated in a little plate, and when the battery is applied to it, this rhythmic, gentle pulse of the quartz keeps a timepiece functioning correctly. So it's the most common crystal all over Turtle Mother, the Earth. That's why I use it, and I used amethyst because it is in the same family, the hexagonal crystals. There are 7 categories of crystals, and the hexagonal crystals include amethyst, citrine, rose quartz, and silicon dioxide or clear quartz. So these are really important crystals for use in dealing with maintaining your card's connection. If you haven't used cards for a long time, and of course for me with having 1100 decks, there are all kinds of decks that I don't use on a regular basis. I have decks that I use and I keep pristine because of their historical context and their rarity. There are collectible cards. I do have some cards that if I damage them, their value would be lost. They're not replaceable. I have lots of cards that I use regularly that I have a second and in one case a third copy of because they are so precious to me as out of print decks. So in our room where all these, and it's a giant room full of cabinets and shelving, and I will make a video of that one day when Brian, instead of using this particular camera, will use the video camera, and I'll just show you where they all are and how they're categorized, and the decks I use and the decks that are more for special purposes. So there are a lot of wives' tales about keeping your decks. I couldn't possibly put every deck in a bag. It's just a nightmare logistically. I actually have library software where I use this to catalog. And what the value of the library software is, let me grab my phone here. When I go out shopping and I want to make sure that I don't have a repeat purchase because I can't keep all 1100 plus and all my reference books in my head. So I have this all my books software, and I can catalog every deck that comes in. And I had to do that after a number of years of trying to keep lists in binders. So let me just put that away. We do smudge regularly. The room where we keep the decks, all of the decks, the room where my desk is and where I greet clients, because I still do private readings. I do them sometimes on Skype or Teams. And now that COVID is winding down here, we're able to see people privately with social distancing in place. But the same room is where we do ceremony, we've done weddings, we've done funerals, we've done all these things, we've run classes. It's a place that is smudged regularly, multiple times a week. So we do indigenous smudging for the whole room, and that covers all of the decks with the intention of covering all of the decks. If I open the circle to do a private reading for someone, I bring out the decks that I'm going to use, and as Brian opens the circle in a good and sacred way, those decks get smudged again right before I use them. And on my sacred table are the crystals and accoutrement of the practice. So we're really aware, because I have always seen the aura, I'm aware that our energy, our consciousness, our intention connects with, the paper product. The paper was a tree, and the tree has a consciousness, and everything in our animistic tradition is connected. So the point of burning the incense puts the essential oils in the room without damaging the cards, but the element of fire changes the energy. We use moon water. I keep a vase of moon water in there all the time. I have sacred water from the shrine where Saint Kateri Tekakwitha, well, let me spit that out again. Saint Kateri Tekakwitha is memorialized, and she's an Algonquin Haudenosaunee Mohawk woman from the 1600s, and I am named after her. And her spirit is something that's very sacred to me. So we have iconography about that. We keep our sacred objects above the tarot shelves. So that room is a dedicated shrine-like space, and the cards are in it. We have other rooms where all sorts of sacred objects are dispersed, because we actively are going into the community doing ceremonies and speaking engagements and going into schools and talking to people about Indigenous traditions. I come at this, though, from a scholarly perspective, having, done my degrees in university in psychology and parapsychology, and I bring my awareness and my psychic gifts. I was a spiritualist minister and transferred my license. The mediumship aspect of what I do contributes to the cards, but you don't have to be a medium. You don't have to see the auric field to know that cleansing your cards, to connect with them, and keep other energies off of them is a very important part of your practice. You will do better readings and you'll stay more focused. People don't realize that when there are a lot of crazy energies in an environment, it will impact how focused you can stay. It's, like being inside of a kaleidoscope when there's too many energies. So I hope this was helpful, and we'll do more of these kinds of videos in the weeks to come, and I'm hoping to get an online tarot class going and a subscription service so that you can get some long-term training in both traditional tarot reading and oracle reading, and also the indigenous traditions of divination around this. So we thank you from Brian over there with his dowsing rods. It's his 75th birthday today, so we're doing videos for YouTube. What else do you do on a birthday? All right. Have a blessed day, and leave us a comment, send me an email, whatever, stay connected. If you'd like to book a private reading, by all means, check out our website, www.moonstarlodge.com. Be well. Aho.